This is the Crossing Bridges podcast, addressing the topics of leadership, criminal justice, and fatherhood. How can we become better leaders? Where are all the daddies? Why is crime at an all-time high? Here is your host, Bayonle Arashi.
All right, it's another episode of Crossing Bridges podcast. I am always excited coming your way. I'm always excited sharing the latest trend and information. And when it comes to the area of leadership, fatherhood, and criminal justice, this is something I'm very, very passionate about. And today, I have another brother that I met sometime last year. And naturally, we just connected. And because I just saw that leadership trait in him. And it is my pleasure to have with me today on Crossing Bridges podcast, Kamga Tchassa. Brother, how you doing today?
Brother, I am happy to be here. I'm honored. Ever since a couple of months ago when we connected we had one video on TikTok and then we had the IG live and we discussed. It's been wonderful what you've been able to do, and I'm very, very happy to be here today.
Thank you very much for that positivity. And I think that's what it is all about. That our discussion last year, even though before that discussion, I have been thinking about starting a podcast or looking for a way or a platform on how to get that discussion to a bigger audience. Thank God podcast exists now. And I love to write. I love to talk. I'm very passionate about the job I do as a correctional officer and as also a leader in my own little way, helping young adults and teenagers. But that seed was sown after that our discussion last year. Hearing you, not knowing a lot of what's going on behind the scene, behind the walls, and hearing it from that perspective really get me going. And I want to say thank you too for the push. Today on the podcast, in the next few minutes that we have, I want you to learn from you about what you think about the criminal justice system, about leadership, and about fatherhood, because these are the three areas that the world is really, really suffering right now. But before we go into that, can you tell the listeners and the people watching the podcast about yourself?
Yes, of course. I think that answer I've had to answer in different ways, whether it's in job interviews or just, hey, what do you do? Who are you? And so over time, you start learning to summarize and to have an idea to begin the conversation. And there was a time when I was writing on my bios, I would just say, I do a lot of things. They all involve some form of storytelling. So that was what I was going by because I was writing, podcasting, YouTubing. I was doing all of that. But the thing that I would say, which I think is going to be connected with your audience, is the fact that I'm an immigrant. I moved to the US in 2018 from Cameroon. I was born and raised. I was 28 years old when I moved. And I moved here because my fiance was here at the time. We got married. That marriage did not last. So for the past almost 3 years now, I have been figuring out America, learning about the country, getting a credit card, getting another job, moving to a different state, all the stuff that comes with being in this country, and learning about myself, learning about the depths of struggle in the perspective of we're not having people around. When you don't have your family, you don't have uncles and aunties where you can go to and cry. Where you cry by yourself in the house and get up and do the thing next day. So for me, what I do now is I currently work with a nonprofit as a Salesforce administrator. That's my day job. And my other job is my content creation. So YouTube, podcasting, writing, speaking, talking with people. I've dabbled in all kinds of things, whether it's graphic design, event management, event hosting, podcast production, content creation. So when it comes to the creative and content creation world, I just really enjoy doing it. But my actual technical skills are in IT, and I have a degree in journalism from back in Cameroon. So yeah, that's a little bit about what I do. It could be a mouthful sometimes, but we can start from there.
And that's just what it's all about. That is being entrepreneurship, and that is being an example to others. That is leading by example as well. So for me, I think that's another kind of area that you and I are connected. Having that never say die attitude, having that spirit of I can do all things, and of course focusing on something special. Your story is a very beautiful one. And I'm definitely going to delve into it further based on the fact that you say you're an immigrant, which ticked my box as well. I immigrated to the United States in 2015. And it's what a journey it has been. What a journey. On my post a few days ago, I said, hopefully someday to be an interesting story to share.
It's a story that's happening all the time. I think people don't realize that whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 18 years, your story is your story. What you're experiencing is real. And you deserve to share that story with people who might be behind you a little bit or ahead of you or who are at the same level. So I think sometimes people think that because they've stayed in America for too long, they have the priority of experience, but I don't agree. I think your experience is your experience, so. Yeah.
And we all experience it in different ways, in different ways. Now, since as an immigrant and for you to serving in working in an NGO and getting involved in a lot of other things that has to do with development and leadership, what would you say your journey has been when you look at your life while you were back home in Cameroon and now that you are in the United States? What would you say your journey is, and how have you been able to manage that transition between growing up in a West African country where we know that one of the biggest challenge we have back there, and I say we because you and I are the same, is leadership. How have you been able to manage to transition from that mindset of not having enough, not living in a properly structured environment, now to living in a place where the number one thing that exists here and that has made it to be so strong over the last 200 and something years it existed has been structure?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because people who move across the US or move to the US from other African countries don't usually realize how much culture shock you can get, how different it is, especially when we talk about the structure, how much for example, I have an appointment after this. If I don't show up on time, I'm not going to have my appointment. It doesn't matter if I beg or cry or tell them, oh, I'm sorry. No, we don't have the appointment, so I have to be there on time. Exactly. So for me, that journey really, I think books helped me a lot. And even when it comes to adapting, I am still adapting right now. I think it's a lifetime. Unless you're a child, when you move here and you're young and you get to, pick up the accent, pick up the culture and all those things, the older you are when you move to America, the more difficult it is, I think, in my experience, to adapt fully. So you adapt to an extent, but there's some things that are already in you so much so that you cannot just let them go. Whether it's the way you're speaking, the way you're thinking. For example, these are both good things and bad things. And when I would say the good things when it comes to being Cameroonian is that Cameroon has had such a hard story. People have given up their lives in Cameroon. People don't dream about being president, don't dream about being minister. It's like, I will never be this thing. And that creates a mindset that I've been thinking about recently, where many Cameroonians are very resilient. Like wherever you put Cameroonians, they're going to survive. Nigerians are very entrepreneurial. They're very community-based. Cameroonians are hard workers who will survive in any area. Now, survival now can mean surviving by doing the wrong things or surviving by doing the good things. So that's one trait that I think Cameroonians have that I am looking back now in Cameroon about how difficult it was to be there. And then when you move to a place like America where you can actually take a path, work hard and get rewarded for it, if you take that same stubbornness, that same resilience, and you work very hard, you can succeed in America. That's one thing that I realized, which has been very similar in my journey, because the friends that I've made, the projects that I've worked on, the job that I'm working on right now has been a direct fruit of me deciding, okay, this is the path that I want to take. What I need to do to get there, I need to get certification, I need to study, I need to do this, I need to interview many interviews before I get a job. And taking that same resilience, that is what allowed me now to be able to be in a place where I can pay my rent. I don't have car payments. I'm using a cheap car anyway, but I don't have to deal with some kind of issues because I read. I try to study the place, the country, and see, okay, what are the mistakes people are doing? Because one thing that I realized on my journey over time and failing in my marriage and failing in other things is the more good information you have, the better decisions you can make, up to an extent. Sometimes you need to have good decisions. So if you don't have to pick between, should I become a doctor or a pharmacist? Should I become a nurse or a CNA? If you just go with the flow and just do, all my friends are doing CNA. All right, I'll do CNA. When you move without a direction, without a plan, without the knowledge to make good decisions, you will eventually make bad decisions. Because I think it was Warren Buffett's friend, I think it's Charlie Munger, was talking about sometimes it's not about making good decisions, it's about avoiding the bad ones. And so I think when people don't focus on how can I make sure that I don't make bad decisions, instead of trying to say, how can I make sure that I make the best decision, looking at it from how can I avoid problems? So, maybe don't stay out late, don't live in this kind of neighborhood, don't take on credit card debt. Like if you avoid all the wrong things, you'll find yourself on a good path. So, but to answer your question about my journey, a lot of that change has happened with me failing, looking at how I fail, trying to learn from what I fail, trying to introspect through it, pick up books, talk to people who are ahead of me, learn from them, wherever they are, whether they are Americans, African Americans, Cameroonians, Nigerians, whoever is open to sharing, whoever has that leadership quality, I am open to interacting with them. Because one of the things I notice that immigrants do, some of them, I don't say all, is that we stick with ourselves. We don't go out to actually learn from the people who have been born and raised here, who know more about this country than we ever will. We don't want to have the humility to say, hey, I'm new here. I don't know how to deal this thing. I don't know, how do I get a lease? How do I build my credit? How do I buy a house? How do I get another job? How do I do interviews? We just sit and we talk to our next brother who sort of looks successful, who doesn't know. And then the brother now doesn't have the humility to say, hey, my brother, listen, I don't know this thing. Let's talk to this other person. They just give you the garbage that they give them, and then you end up in this hole after 10, 20 years because you could not go out of your space of Cameroonians or Nigerians or immigrants to talk to people who would be happy to help, So those are two things, like getting that knowledge and then getting out of my space has really helped me on this journey to get access to information and people that I normally would never have access to when I was in Cameroon. Yeah,
that's a very, very interesting answer there, and very detailed as well. And it would probably, I'll buttress it a little bit based on some of the things you mentioned. You talk about failure. Failure is what a lot of people do not talk about. And when you and I were going to start the discussion, I know because the podcast is probably set to be 30 minutes, I'm trying to make sure our discussion, but I know that whenever you and I engage,
it does go like 2 hours. Yeah.
So much to talk about. But I'm sure from time to time, because I know you are such a man of knowledge, and you mentioned those areas. Failure is one of these we don't talk about enough, and you already talk about your failure in marriage, number one, which who hasn't experienced that in this part of life? But according to what one of my mentors said, the late Dr. Miles Muro, he said failure is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. If you continue to fail, you will find your way someday to success. You cannot stop because you fail and say, okay, that's just the end of it for me. Now, how have you used those failures to channel yourself to where you are today? What would you say has been that thing that kept you going? They're just like, okay, I'm not going to stop, especially for the fact that you come from that immigrant background, knowing that there is no room for failure. You can't fail. That's one of the things I tell myself. In one of the podcast episodes, I mentioned that I practice affirmation. A lot of people don't understand what it means. And you also said something about books. People do not realize that many things that you are going to do or you will be doing is already been written somewhere in the book. And one of the things that can really help you to get there fast or faster is for you to pick up the book and read. Last year, I was looking at myself and I said, okay, I read a total of 24 books last year in 2022. And I said, okay, that's not bad. When I hear people say they read 60, they read 40, I'll be like, wow, but I'm glad. But what inspired you to make use of all these things that you mentioned, your failure, picking up books, to get you going? How are you getting that inspiration day by day?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it helps me to really think about even what I was saying. And I love hearing questions like this, because sometimes we talk about things we don't really consider what we say until somebody else points out things inside the things that we say. So thank you for pointing that out. I'll start with the books and go straight to what you talk about the numbers. What I realized over time, first of all, what I started reading was my parents were not really readers. It's not as if they were not reading. It's more of they don't encouraging it. It wasn't as if my father had books in the house. No, my father did not give me books. The thing that they did is that it did not stop me from reading. So I went to a boarding school and there were books there. And some of my teachers, actually one particular teacher really, it's when I look back that I see what he did. He saw in me what I did not see and actually pulled me from the science class to give a speech during the parent-teacher PTA, parent-teacher assembly. And I didn't know at the time. I just thought he was just, being annoying. But it's not I realized that he had seen that I had some things, like that idea of leadership and being able to do public speaking. And he pulled me out there to give me an opportunity to actually tap into that. So that, and then when I went to university or college, or in America, or college, there was this is called Books and Things in Boya. University of Boya is where I went to back in Cameroon in Boya. And there was a public library called, a private library called Books and Things. So a lot of people that I know now that we are friends, we talk about books and stuff, used to go there because there's only library that was available where you could find many books for cheap. And so I've been reading for fun, really. which is what Naval Ravikant is venture capitalist, entrepreneur, amazing philosopher guy. He talks about the problem with reading that people face is that people just read because they're told to read in school. They don't read for fun. So if you want to love to read, start by reading what you want to read. When you build the habit of reading, where you just read whatever, whether it's trash books, simple books, signs on the wall, it doesn't matter. Just read until now it's a habit. It's like brushing your teeth. So that when you really want to now learn something, when you're picking up that book, you're not struggling with trying to, I need to read this thing. I have to read this thing now. So for me, I think what happened was because I was reading long before I needed personal development or self-improvement, it was a natural extension of my, I don't know this thing. Let me go and get a book and read. It was not even I didn't have to think about it. And what I'm learning now is that it's not really about the quantity of books that you read. People want to read 1,000 books, 100 books, whatever. First of all, you and I will never read all the books in the world. It's clear. There is no way we'll finish the books, which brings a good problem because now you need to figure out which book do I pick to read when. Because some books will change your mind. Other books will waste your time. So you need to be able to know, all right, who is this author? What are they giving? What problem am I trying to solve with this book? So what I'm looking in terms of books now is that I only read books when I have a particular problem that I want to solve. And I know that this book has been recommended by somebody who solved that problem or a mentor. Like, when a mentor says, this book will help you understand this, I pick it up. I don't even think twice. But if it just looks good, it has a nice cover, I look the back, I skip the pages, it's not good enough. So for me, and I buy a lot of books. That's another thing. I buy so many books that I don't feel bad when I leave a book. So I can start a book. If it's boring, I drop it. Like now, I usually read about 3 books at the same time. I'm reading books about my work, personal development, business. I'm trying to read the Bible a lot more because I feel like my spiritual life is not as where I would like it to be. So when it comes to books in general, I really think that the failure that we've had in many African communities is that we did not encourage children to read for fun. People read to pass exams. They read so that they don't trash them. They don't read because they like to read. So they never pick up the habit. And then when they are older and they need books to help them file the taxes, start the business, it gets difficult. So that's for books. And to switch to failure, I think books are a great way to avoid failures because if you read the stories of how people have failed, you can then intentionally avoid those things. Yes. So it's not so much about making good decisions. It's about avoiding the bad decisions. Because if you avoid bad decisions, if you don't marry the wrong person, if you don't invest in the wrong stock, if you don't take the wrong career, you will end up in the good place. I think we are so, I say we, I mean human beings, immigrants, we are so worried about making the wrong decision or making the right decision that we don't think about avoiding the wrong decision. And so when I look at my failures and the ways that I failed is when I look back, for example, at my marriage, I look at it like, okay, what did I do here that did not work? Because learning from your failures requires that you take responsibility. So you need self-awareness to know enough, okay, what did I do? What could I have done differently? What did I not do? Why did I not do it? Because if you don't assess yourself, if you don't look at the situation and say, what went wrong? When I look at my marriage, could I have been a better husband? Could I have been more communicative? Could I have been more patient? Could I have worked harder? Could I have been more understanding? Yes. So I didn't do that. So for me to avoid that from happening again, I need to work on becoming more understanding, more patient, communicate better, and express myself in a way that communicates what I'm thinking without it coming up as aggressive or impolite or rude. So I think learning from failures requires that we first of all have the humility to accept that, okay, I have failed. Why did I fail? What can I do differently? Because if we don't go through that process, the same thing will happen. It doesn't matter who we meet, which job we take, where we go to. We'll leave from here and go back to Nigeria or go back to Cameroon, and the same problems will be happening because the issue is here.
So you're right there because it exists. It exists universally. Wow.
Yeah.
What such an amazing response. And again, I said time is not on our side, but I'm sure we'll put in as much as we can in this episode. And as time goes
I would definitely love to come back again another time.
I am very, very inspired by you, by your depth of knowledge and by the things you have shared. You said something very interestingly that your dad wasn't the one that
I know your dad.
you.
Your dad was a reader. Dad, I listened to the podcast, so I know your dad was the one who was reading, and you're seeing him read. Yeah, I remember.
I was going to say that for me, he was the one that introduced me because I didn't have the opportunity to go to university back home. My highest level of education while I was home was going to a vocational school, to a technical college, and it was from there that I have my path to go to start my professional path as a broadcaster back then. But you're talking about book, and then we go to what we are discussing on this podcast precisely in the next few minutes that we have.
Yeah,
brother, how do you think the challenge of lack of fathers in this is our community right now. We live in America. In America, how do you think it is affecting the future of this country? There are so many stories that you see out there today, and you can easily know that the foundation of it is that there is no father at home. How do you think it is hugely impacting the current level of life we're living? And what do you think is going to be the impact of it in the next few years? Because personally, me working in the criminal justice system, like I said, is one of the things that started this podcast, to keep telling the younger ones the importance of them being a man, and for them to understand that you have to learn very early in life and know the do's and the don'ts of life, because the system is going to punish you. As we said, the system is set up there for you to make your choice, the good or the bad. It is all on you. But how do you think it is really currently impacting the people? I want to learn from you.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll even zoom out a little bit more, because I understand that it's definitely a factor that affects the people I raise. The way the family is structured, I don't think it's a mistake that God wanted a man and a woman to have a child, or like to have two parents in the house. It's not a mistake that there is a masculine and feminine vibe or energy that we all deal with. There is no mistake that society is made up the way it is. Now, are there extremes that have been pushed to a certain edge on both ends? Toxic masculinity, toxic femininity. Yes, there are extremes. But I think the neutral stance, which is where we need both parties. It's like if you are a business owner and you know somebody who is good with money and you're good with talking to people, you build a good business because you have complementary skills. And I think the home requires the complementary skills. I think the child needs to be able to see those two. When there is imbalance, when there's an absence of a mother figure or a father figure, whether it's the actual parent or a grandparent or an uncle, whether it's the actual mother or a grandmother or an auntie, when there's a lack of a father and a mother, one of the above, there is imbalance. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, and this is an area that is very blurry because I don't have that knowledge to back up what I'm saying. I don't want to make pseudoscience here. I think, generally speaking, on average, fathers are usually the one that provides structure, because the masculine or the man is not really, is much more comfortable with conflict. I think men are okay with fighting physically, mentally. Mothers are much more okay with nurturing. There is nothing wrong with that. There's a time for fighting and there's a time for nurturing. And when you're two together, you can easily just switch those roles. So what happens when there is no strong structure in the home, whether it's from the mother or the father? I'm not saying that only the mother can bring, that only the father can bring the structure. And I'm trying to be politically correct here because the world in which we live in is very crazy. So what I'm trying to say is that, it's true. I'm trying to think about the fact that there are many things that I don't know and that I don't fully understand. I don't want to take any strong stance like, oh, he has to be a man. Because there are women who are very good with structure. There are women who run the house very meticulously. Like they're the ones who know how to keep things in order and plan things and discipline. There are women who are able to do that very well, better than men. And there are men who are also good at nurturing. So it might be the exception, but the general average, the consensus is that most men are X, while most women are Y. I think when I look at the American society and the rise of Andrew Tate and Kevin Samuels and all these conversations around there are no men, it boils down to me is like one thing. We, me, you, have to become better men. Because we might say there are no fathers, but who are those fathers? It's us. So if we look at our friends, our age mates, and they are not being good parents, there's no need for us to actually want to be better parents. I want to be a dad. I got married and I like being married. I want to be married. I'm currently single and I'm looking. So if my wife is listening to this, please send me a message. And the way I look at it is the way we can get better fathers and to have that structure in the home, which is much more leaning on the man, is for us to become better men, which means we have to build our honesty, our integrity, take care of our mental health, take care of our physical health. We cannot outsource our education, our finances, our retirement to the government or to women or to other men. We have to build ourselves. The way we stop the lack of fathers in society is by becoming better fathers, by inspiring other fathers to do better. If you're a good dad and your children love you and they play with you, and your friend comes to the house and sees the way you're interacting with your children, like you're strong, you have good money, you're healthy, your wife is happy, your kids are happy, your friend will say, my brother, what are you doing to maintain this happy home? You seem like, and then you tell them, well, listen, this is how I do it. I take care of myself. I set the pace because my children are watching me. So I am personally not waiting for the government to pass a law or say, oh, every father has to take 10 hours of university credit course on how to become a better father. I don't think that's going to happen. And I think many women are frustrated because women also want that leadership. They want men that they can count on. And unfortunately, me included, there are many men who cannot be counted upon because we don't even know what we're doing. So I'm not blaming the men or blaming the women or the government. I'm saying that for us to have a society where we have more fathers, we have to become those fathers. We are that society. We are that future. So if I'm not taking care of myself, I'm not building myself, I'm not making sure that I have my good money, I'm not taking care of my health, my cooking, my health, how would I become a better father? When my child will look at me and say, but daddy has a fat stomach, he doesn't work out, he has no money. I mean, what's this? And he wants me to listen to him. Why?
Wow. That is such a detailed response, my brother. That's a very, very, I'm very, you just further confirm the importance of why they need to be guests on the podcast. I mean, you hearing it from you now from a different perspective entirely. You actually went ahead and look at the bigger picture, the holistic picture of a man and a woman. You took it beyond just a man. And it was very interesting. You mentioned Kevin Samuel and Andrew Tate. And if we're going to mention those two individuals in itself, that's it. That's an entire episode of a podcast. So definitely we'll have to agree on host or doing another episode in the next few days to talk about that area. But I always love to end with these three questions, which I would love to get answers from you in a minute.
Yeah.
Or less. Very, very important to me, because if I ask you another question, we definitely surpass our time.
Yeah.
Do you think leaders are born or are made?
I think they're made. I think people can be born with qualities. A good footballer can be born good with rolling the ball. But to maintain that skill, I think leadership is a skill, which means it can be taught, it can be learned, you can become a better leader. Reading books, getting mentorship, practicing, consistency, deliberate practice, you can learn how to become a better leader. That's what I think.
Absolutely. That's a very strong answer. My second question will be, what do you think makes a good man? What do you think makes a good man?
It's interesting to ask that question because I'm going to pull up a note that I wrote sometime around, forgotten when that was. I wrote a note actually with a couple of words about being a man. I think masculinity. That's what I was looking at. So this is what I've been writing, like when words come to me, I literally just pick up and I write it. So this is what the words that I wrote to answer this: stability, sacrifice, service, stoicism, strength, kindness, honor, honesty, love, loyalty, leadership, brotherhood, integrity, friendship, usefulness, purpose, power, and responsibility. So when I think of a word and I think of what kind of man do I want to be, I want to be able to have these words say that I am. So what makes a man? I think they're the qualities that we don't seem to realize are necessary to build from within. A man is not somebody who is powerful enough to beat everybody. A man is the one who is powerful enough to convince people to do the right thing because he knows the right thing and he has a skill to communicate that without necessarily using force. But if the time comes to use force, he should be ready for it. It should not be his first choice. But he should be able to protect and provide and serve and stand his ground and draw the lines and say no and mean no. A man is not there to serve whoever. He's there to serve the people who are deserving, the weak and the powerless, women and children. But if a child is spitting in your face, you should be able to say, stop it, leave. If a woman is not taking that serious, she's not loyal, leave. So that's what I think a man has to be, is all those words and the ability to know where to draw the line and where to fight for what you believe is right.
Wow. I have goosebumps listening to you saying all of that. And that is so powerful. That is really powerful. Last but not the least, what is your favorite quote as a leader, as a man, and as a man of substance that's hoping to leave a legacy in life? What's your favorite quote?
There's one that I've been thinking about very recently. The first time I saw it was in a video by Casey Neistat. He's a YouTuber who has many million views. He made this video it was for Nike. It was a video called Make It Count. It's a short video, it's 3 minutes. I think it has like 12 million, maybe more million views. But the quote that I've been thinking about, I've come back to regularly, is a quote by Gandhi that was in that video. And it says, actions express priorities. It's a very short quote. And what I understand by that quote is that it's not about what you think. It's not about what you want. It's not about what you wish. It's not about, oh, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to lose weight. I want to make money. I want to do this. I want to start a podcast. What you do, your actions will express what your priorities in life are. If you want to be a good man, It's what you do. It's not what you say. It's not who you're talking to. It's not how you dress. What do you do? Actions. Yeah. Express Priorities by Gandhi.
It's been an amazing 30 minutes. I know we agree. We definitely have to do this. I appreciate you for coming, brother. I really, this is probably going to be one of the most watched and most listened to podcast episodes. And definitely we need to work out on recording another episode together. But in the meantime, I just want to appreciate you for coming and for your support and for what you are doing in your own way to support the moving forward of human race in general, for leading other men, and of course for just putting your own contribution while we are here, because that's all we can do. So I just want to say thank you very much for coming, Kamga, and look forward to us sharing many more moments of this kind of moments as we go ahead. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, guys. I am sure you've had it there. That was a very interesting discussion with my brother, my friend Kamga Tchassa. Is a leader in his own right, and I'm sure you heard about him. You can, before you go quickly, what is your social media handle where they can follow you? Because I'm sure you will definitely have a few people that want to learn more about your wealth of wisdom.
Yeah, anywhere you go, you find Kamga Tchassa, Kamga Tchassa. Americans say Tchassa, but it's Tchassa.
Yes, Tchassa. And you said actually right. I said you come here as a kid. You will not be able to talk like, oh, we say the way it is. We don't do all the, we are here and we're hoping that our kids are going to learn from us. That's his handle there. Go follow him, learn more. But I assure you that I'm going to bring him back on the podcast to share more of his wealth of knowledge with us. But guys, till I see you guys again next time, continue to lead, continue to serve, continue to find your purpose and develop that purpose, and continue to find a path for yourself, and believe that everything takes time. It is a process. Take it one day at a time. There is no fast way to doing anything. If you want it done right, do it slowly and believe in the process. My name is Bayonle Arashi. Thank you guys for listening. Have a good day. Bye-bye now.
Thank you for listening to the Crossing Bridges podcast with Bayonle Arashi. Your comments, suggestions, and ideas are welcome. Follow Bayonle on all social media platforms at Bayonle Arashi, or visit www.bayonlearashi.com for coaching and speaking engagements. See you next time.